Perfect. So today what we want to do, we're going to go a little bit through CBD, cannabidiol. And over the years, I'm kind of receiving always more or less the same questions. And so I kind of collected those a little bit. And today we're going to go through these questions and I give you the answers. And if at the end you still have some questions, we can open it up for some discussion. So let's get started. So my qualifications, I started working with CBD years ago, I mean, over a decade. And in fact, I needed a special permission at that time because it was not really legal yet. And imagine the first place where CBD showed up in the United States was in the beauty industry and in the anti-aging medicine. And that's where I got introduced to CBD. And then quickly, being a fan of essential oils, I started mixing and I had to figure out how to do this because not every oil and carrier oil would mix with CBD and other essential oils. And here you see a trial that failed. I had some turmeric back down here, liposomal turmeric, then I had the CBD, and then I had a carrier oil, and obviously it didn't mix. So I had to figure out a way, and this is my laboratory. So at this place, thank you to my wife, Ellen, who lets me use the kitchen every once in a while as my laboratory. But this is how it looks when I do my mixing. And, so I still do stuff today. I already work with some other cannabinoids like CBN, CBG. I'm trying to get some CBC in the house. I have Delta 8, Delta 10 is coming. So there's a whole bunch of cannabinoids you can work with. And when it comes to CBD and my work, I typically get boxes like this you see here. That's a 1/4 kilo. I have a full kilo box in my fridge here. So I use CBD big style. So not just for humans, but you're going to see also with animals. So, but the first question is, and I have to be careful to be compliant because we're all young living and we want it to be nice and legal. So, but let's start first. What is CBD? So CBD is an abbreviation for cannabidiol. It's a natural substance from a hemp plant. It's not to be confused with marijuana. In other words, CBD does not make you cuckoo like marijuana does. In fact, CBD has no psychoactive effects. And I would go a step further. CBD has the contrary effect. So if somebody shows up in the ER with some really bad nightmares and hallucination from marijuana, we could give that person some CBD and those side effects from marijuana would go down because CBD counteracts the psychoactive effect. So do not be afraid of CBD because it really is not psychoactive like marijuana. CBD has many, many uses in humans and animals, and we're going to talk through a few of these. And I think it's a true treasure from God and nature. So what is then the difference between CBD and marijuana? So the difference would be, it looks different, but it's the same plant. So the plant is called cannabis, right? There's different subfamilies of the cannabis plant. But in general, when you grow cannabis one way, you get this, until a few years ago, I would say, this tall plant. So if I would stand in front of it, this would be 2 or 3 times as tall as I am. Okay, so this is 6, 7 foot high. And you see the leaves and the flowers are just here on top, but you have these long, long stems. And we use those to do textiles, building materials, all other things. And then up here, we use the leaves and the flowers to do the CBD. When you grow marijuana from the same plant, it looks different. You see, it's not as high, it's smaller than a person usually, or just about as tall as a person. It's very bushy, a lot of flowers and leaves and not a lot of stems. So what is the difference? Well, the substance you gain from these plants, here you get mainly CBD, and you see the formula for CBD, cannabidiol. And here you get mainly THC, and THC is the abbreviation for tetrahydrocannabinol or marijuana. So different formula, different type of the same plant. So how do you get to the different types of the plant if it's the same plant? Well, let me show you. Plants have male and female like humans and animals. And so when you look at the male cannabis plant, you're going to find these little, let's say like testicles, right? And they have semen or pollen in there. So when they mature and there's a lot of wind, these pollen open up, or these little bags here open up. We call them pollen sacs. And then the pollen starts flying around. And then you have the female plant, and she has a similar structure, but they have little feathers on top. Okay, we call those pistils. And those feathers have a little glue on them. So when the pollen comes flying with the wind and it goes to this glue, it gets stuck. And this is how the female gets impregnated. She gets pregnant. And that's a very nice thing for the plant. So let's look at a female and male field. So you're a farmer, you buy a bag of seeds, and I would say this is up till about 5 years ago, because a lot of things have changed in how you cultivate and grow and process and harvest and all that with CBD. But in the good old times, 5 years and older, you would go with a bag of seeds and you put them out on the field. And about 50% of your seeds are female, 50% are male. You see the male is a little taller, less flowers and leaves than the female. And so the male produces pollen, it gets the female pregnant, the female gets very, very happy, like with most of you. When you're pregnant, you're very happy, and you put all your energy in growing your baby. And what is the baby? The baby is a hemp seed, another new little hemp seeds. And so the glue that the plant is using is just a normal glue. It's a resin, and we call this resin CBD or cannabidiol. That's where the pollen gets stuck. Now let's be pretty brutal and let's go and remove all the males from the field. So all you're going to be left with are females. And when you do that, then the plant wants to get pregnant, but there's no male with no pollen. And so the females are very smart. It's like with humans, right? So she thinks, how can I do that? Because now I'm completely sexually frustrated. So you can see that this plant wants to get pregnant. She's frustrated, and now she thinks very hard, how could I capture more pollen? And the answer is by creating more aggressive glue, like a super glue, like, that glues in a second. Well, when the plant starts creating very aggressive glue, that resin is now not CBD anymore. It's a different glue, and it's THC, marijuana. And this is how you grow marijuana from the same plant. You just remove all the males and have only frustrated females, and they started producing this very aggressive resin. And so you can really say that CBD comes from a very happy plant, right? It's a happy product. That's an easy way to remember, because the female got pregnant, she gets a little baby, she's very, very happy, and that plant produces a very happy CBD. So this is where the plant creates the resin or the glue, the CBD or the THC, the marijuana, in those little white little pieces, and we call them trichomes. So these trichomes are like mushrooms, and this is where it produces. And it's not just with cannabis. For example, lavender plants have trichomes on their leaves, on the flowers. Many other plants have that, peppermint and things like that, right? And so when you look at these trichomes, they look right now very milky white. That will tell you as a farmer that this plant is ready to be harvested for CBD. You also see some of these pistils, they're normally white, now they're orange, which also indicates that the plant has matured. Now, when you leave the plant alone for another while, it will keep on maturing. And then some of the CBD will be then changed with the enzymes and everything the plant has into THC. And then this color will not be white anymore, like here, like milky white. It will be more like amber color. And so when you are a farmer and you're a marijuana farmer, then you go with the magnifying glass and you do also other things like the bricks where you look at sugar content and things like that. But mostly you're going to look at the color, and you're going to break up some of these little mushrooms by hand, and you're going to smell. So this is how you figure out when the plant is ready to be harvested. So to summarize a little bit, again, when we have female, male, the female gets pregnant, very happy plant, creates little babies, hemp seeds, And there's different families that are mainly doing this. And then it's rich in CBD, 2 to 3% CBD. Now, again, that number is until about 5 years ago. Since 5 years, many things have changed in the industry. And we work for example, with only feminized seeds. Yeah, today all the seeds are female, and we still can create CBD, but the CBD can be as high as 25%, depending on the seeds. So it has a lot to do with seed genetics, and it's above and beyond of this little lecture we do today. But I have something ready for you where I talk about these things, about seed genetics and how you do all these tricks with feminizing plants. Even males, you can turn them into females. And I will show you where you can learn all that. I created an entire CBD bootcamp where you can learn all these things. So when you have the females, you remove all the males and you get this super glue here. It's very THC rich, marijuana rich, up to 40%, but extremely low in CBD. And this is the difference. Same plant, different way to grow it, and different results, either CBD or THC being marijuana. So how then does CBD work in the human body? That's a lot of people want to know that. So let's have a look at that. CBD is one of those plants that God put on earth and equipped us with receptors in our body so we can create homeostasis, a balance of each single organ system. And that's what CBD is for. Now, this will also explain the multiple benefits CBD will have on your body. It will balance your brain, your eyes, your heart, your gut, your bones, your immune system, and much, much more. In fact, it's going to balance everywhere where it is. And it is everywhere because the receptors are everywhere. I'm going to show you that in a second. So it's also on the skin, it's in the liver, in the kidney. I mean, wherever you go, you're going to find these receptors for CBD, and CBD can work in one way or another. So how does it work in the body? It works through a system we call the endocannabinoid system. So let's talk about that system. And this is a cartoon out of the book that I have created. And to explain things that are a little more complicated, I made cartoons. And you see on these cartoons, you have keys, you have keyholes, you have cranes, hammers, and boats. So the keys we call ligands in medicine or biochemistry. Ligands are, for example, the plant substance. For example, peppermint menthol would be a ligand. Then it goes to a receptor, a keyhole. So if the key fits in the receptor, something will happen, or you're going to be able to close the door completely. So one of the two things. Then we have the cranes. These are enzymes that are building up something in your body. And then we have hammers. These are the enzymes that break it down, that create, metabolism. And then we have little boats that transport some of these fat-soluble compounds, for example, like CBD, around the body because most of the body is water. So how does that work with these receptors? So if we bring a ligand, a CBD, for example, and we find a mailbox. So here's the mail guy, right? And the CBD letter fits into the mailbox, and the mailbox is stuck into the cell membrane. And now the CBD makes the mailbox a little heavier because it fits into it, and the mailbox will push down through the cell membrane. And by doing so, it changes something in the inside, which leads to a big action, like a domino stone, falling down. So many reactions can happen, in fact, through these receptors. And we have receptors for insulin, we have receptors for lavender, for peppermint, for CBD. I mean, many, many receptors. And in fact, this is the scientific way to show receptors. That's a CB1, CB2 receptors. They're almost the same, not quite. And you see the cell wall in the middle here. And CB stands for cannabinoid. So cannabinoid 1 receptor, cannabinoid 2 receptor. They do different things. So if you take marijuana, the brain is very rich in CB1. So marijuana will mostly go to the CB1 receptors in the brain and will attach very well to it. And that's how it makes the psychoactive stuff in your brain, the cuckoo, right? Whereas CBD goes mostly to CB2 receptors, and you find them on the immune cells, in the gut, and some other places. And the binding is not as strong as the marijuana binds to CB1. So just a few differences. So let's do a little detour into our nerves and our brain. I want to explain to you how nerves work. So here you have a single nerve, and you see it has many little hands to receive the signals. We call these hands dendrites. The signals will then go to the nucleus, the middle part of the brain, your computer, and the computer will calculate all the information that it receives and create a new signal that then goes through that long tail we call an axon and ends up in many little hands. And we call those, because they're at the end, we call them terminal. And because they have little buttons at the end, we call them terminal buttons. Okay, so this is how nerves look like. So when we connect two nerves to each other, we always think they're going to touch each other. And so the electrical signal comes down one and goes right away to the other. But when you look with the magnifying glass, you see that they don't touch each other. In fact, there's some water in between, and the electric signal cannot transfer from one to the other. So when we make this a little bit bigger, this area we call the synapse. So when we make this bigger, we see it here again. This is magnified. So we see the terminal button from one nerve coming. So here comes down the electrical signal, because it cannot jump over to the dendrite of the next nerve, the next little hand receiving the signal. It releases these little bubbles, and these little bubbles have something in it we call neurotransmitters, because they transmit a signal in the brain, a neurosignal. Many of these neurotransmitters, by the way, are formed in the gut. That is one of the reasons when your gut is not okay, when you have diarrhea, constipation, any other gut issue like leaky gut syndrome, often your memory and other things are not working well. Your emotions are not well, right? This has multiple reasons. One of them is because these neurotransmitters, some of them are created in the gut wall. And if your gut is not okay, you're not getting enough of these transmitters. So let's look again. So here we have the first terminal button coming down. The signal comes, it releases these neurotransmitters. When they reach a little receptor on the other side, it recreates the signal, and then it goes down to the next nerve. But there's a little few more pieces here. Look, in this dendrite here, we have two little factories, and we look at those a little more exactly. We see they produce a substance we call 2-AG, and another one we called A. So A stands for anandamide. Anandamide is the happy hormone. In Sanskrit, Indian Sanskrit language, anandamide means happiness and luck, all these things. So this is your good luck hormone or your happiness hormone. Whereas 2-AG is also a similar compound. The AG stands for a very complicated word, abbreviation. So here we create those. And what are these two? These two are called endocannabinoids. What does that mean? Endo is an old Greek word for inside. And cannabinoids, yes, you, like the cannabis plants, are producing cannabinoids. You produce endocannabinoids, whereas the plant creates phyto for plant cannabinoids. And so what do these do? Well, they are going out of the factory. They go on the boats on the harbor here. They go backwards, the synapse back up, and they go to the mailboxes up here. And so depending on what the body needs at that given second, at that given place, these endocannabinoids can either stimulate or block the release of these bubbles. And so does CBD. And this is how CBD and your endocannabinoids can, at any given second, in any given place of your body, immediately create an action or stop an action. This is how it balances your body. Either it goes one way or it goes the other way. A lot of people don't understand the research that would explain that CBD can improve or, let's say, increase the immune system, but at the same time, it can decrease the function of the immune system. Why this duality? Well, because it needs to be able to balance the system, in this case, the immune system. Okay, so hopefully you got that. Now, when we look at receptors, we have CB1, I told you already. This is where marijuana likes to go, and you have a lot of them in the brain and in the spinal cord, and then a few all around on the skin and some other places. Whereas CB2, you have mostly in the gut, in the immune system, bone marrow, skin, but very few in the brain. And those in the brain counteract the effect of marijuana in the brain. But when you really look at the body and all these receptors, you have CB1, CB2, but then you have all these other words like GABA and GPR55 and all that. Well, turns out, here's one that is well known, that's a serotonin, a happiness receptor, 5-HT1A. All of these turn out to be working together with cannabinoids, with CBD. And so our body is full of receptors for the cannabis plant, especially. And so this is really a system that is very, very important. God created humans and the plants to work together. And if you don't believe in religion, then you can say evolution. And if you're very religious and now you're upset, then I just tell you God created evolution and then all is good again, right? So, but this is how it works. And then you have these enzymes, you have the construction crew, and you have the demolition crew. And so construction crew will help to create an endamide and 2-AG, for example, and the demolition crew will break it down or break down CBD and THC and many other things. So we thought until about 5-6 years ago that CBD works mainly by attaching to CB2 receptors. But we found that that's not the main way it works. The main way it works is it's inhibiting the demolition crew that is waiting to break apart an endamide. So when you take CBD, less anandamide is broken down, so your blood levels of the happiness hormone anandamide will go up. And this is the main way we understand that CBD works today, is through this inhibition here of these enzymes, plus, of course, it binds to the receptors and does other things. So this is the reason why when you take CBD, you feel the relaxation if you get it in the right dose, you feel the happiness, you sleep a little bit better, the worries go a little bit away. So this is the happiness hormone working on your body. And then, of course, we have the cute little boats that transport the cannabinoids. We call them cannabinoid transporters. So if you want to learn more about all these things, and this is just touching the surface, you see, I created a whole bootcamp on CBD, all videos. You can just sit back, but rather than Zoom, it's video. I mean, I sent out drone teams on the fields. I sent film teams to the processing plants. I mean, I interviewed farmers and processors and all kind of stuff. So in 12 different videos, I'm explaining you everything you want to know about CBD, about hemp seed, the hemp plant, the processing, the planting, the harvesting, and so on. All you need to know. So where do you go for that? You go to cbd.biocodeacademy.com/friends. When you use the friends code here, friends, then you're going to get an additional gift. This is not free, it costs around $50-$60 or so, and then you get some off when you use the promo code friends. All right. So what are cannabinoids, right? Well, I told you already, we have phytocannabinoids coming from the plants. We have endocannabinoids coming from inside of your body. And of course, we have synthetic cannabinoids. And so when you look at the plant, we know the plant creates anywhere between 150 and 200 phytocannabinoids. The most well-known ones are CBD and THC, so CBD and marijuana. But we also have CBG, CBN, CBC, THCA, THCV, CBD, and many others, okay? So these are the ligands, these are the keys that will go into the receptors. And then they create something, a reaction, or they block the reaction, either one, so they can balance the system. The endocannabinoids are 6 so far. We have found the 2 most important ones are anandamide, I already told you that, and 2-AG, and here you say what it stands for arachidonyl glycerol. And these are basically the endocannabinoids that will work on the enzymes and do other things in your body to make you happy. You also produce opioids, for example, in your body. We call them enkephalines and cephalines. So then we have synthetic cannabinoids, and you should leave your hands away from those because, especially with the marijuana in China, they're producing that stuff like crazy. And it binds up to 100 times stronger to some of these receptors in the brain, especially with marijuana. And this is what creates havoc with young people. It's bad for the skin. People lose the hair. We're not even sure about cancer, whether they create cancer. So do not use any synthetics. And that's the problem. When you buy stuff online, when you buy stuff in the store and you don't know what you buy, you get stuff like this. And it's really, really bad. So comes the next big question. Now that you understand how you grow it, how you process it more or less, and you understand how it works in your body, now let's see how we can take it. A lot of people ask me, can I take mine under the tongue? In fact, if you have been with Young Living since they started selling CBD, you remember the first few bottles said, put the dropper under your tongue. And you also had pet CBD, right? So for internal use. But then the laws became more specific. And in the United States and most states, the law said you're not allowed to take it internally because it's not a dietary supplement. It's all registered under the cosmetics. And so similar with essential oils that are registered as cosmetics, you cannot take them internally. And so right now, not yet, legally, Young Living had to be relabeled. Originally, you could take it under the tongue. Now we have a new label, and you cannot put it under the tongue. It will take a dropper, put it on your skin. And we also have no more pet CBD for the same reason, because the only way, more or less, how you get CBD into pets is by putting it into their food. Now, the laws are changing very quickly, and there's at least 2 bills, bipartisan, interestingly, for once they can agree, bipartisan bills where they want to pass some marijuana laws, and one subtitle on that bill is that CBD should become a dietary supplement. In Europe, the same efforts are going on. Some countries already accepted that. And as soon as it's a dietary supplement, of course, you can put it under your tongue. So wait, I think within the next year or so, we're going to have to change the label again, or we're going to be able to change the label again, and you're going to be able to take it under the tongue. So now, this is mostly in Europe a problem, but here too, right? If you go online or you go to a store somewhere where they have all these products, you're going to find that a lot of products are labeled with percentage and not with milligram. So whoever is kind of disturbing here, please silence yourself. So the Chaos of CBD product, this is something you really need to know. These are official studies by the NIH and by some other big places where they looked at the quality of cannabis products, CBD and marijuana. And they found that up to 85% contain pesticides, solvents, and other contaminants, such as heavy metals. Why is that? Because the hemp plant is like a sponge. If you grow hemp on a field that is heavily kind of fertilized with pesticides, herbicides, and other things, they're going to suck it up like a sponge, which is great to clean up fields. But because all these pesticides, herbicides, heavy metals, they're all fat soluble, all of that stuff goes into the fat soluble parts of the plants, namely the resins. And so here you're going to get CBD and marijuana with all that crappy stuff in it. Then in addition to that, 70% of CBD products are mislabeled. They're either underlabeled, they're overlabeled, and some products have 0 CBD. So seed to seal quality is not just important for our essential oil, it's extremely important for CBD products. And here are some recent reports from this year. At least 25% of all CBD products are still not tested for microbes, pesticides, herbicides, solvents, and heavy metals. And they tested 3,000 products. And out of the 3,000, 750 products are not tested before you get it into your mouth or wherever you take it. Only 13% test for all contaminants. I mean, we do what we do at Young Living. We do microbial testing and herbicide testing and heavy metal testing and all of that stuff, right? Only 42% of companies test for potency. I mean, again, you have no clue what you're getting. 84% of the products were found to be outside the limits for an acceptable variance in potency. So that's like almost every product. This is where it really, really becomes important that you buy your CBD in a company where you know that we test for all of that stuff. And at Young Living, we do. In fact, we have probably the biggest, most expensive laboratory for plant products at Young Living. And certainly we have the best software because we have the most experience in the world of any essential oil company, or in that sense of any plant company. Now, here's another analysis, right, from April also. Over 50% of CBD products are still not labeled correctly. Even worse, 30% of users that use what they call CBD dominant products with a lot of CBD in it, and then 37, almost 40% that use a mixture of CBD and THC, which is full spectrum. They didn't have any CBD metabolites in the urine. This puts in question whether the product even contains CBD. If you do not find CBD metabolites in the urine, there was no CBD in it, okay? And then they looked at vapes, and only 20% of CBD vapes had even some CBD metabolites in the urine. So what it just tells you that this market is just terrible, and you need to really work with a company that you can trust. So why do people use percentage on the label? Because the manufacturer has no clue, I just showed you the studies, the exact amount of product of CBD in the product because of seasonal fluctuations, because they don't want to spend the money, they don't have the measuring capacity. It's expensive to go to a really good lab and measure all these things for every single batch. We do that, but most of them don't do that. Right? And if you see a percent information, you as the customer should be able to calculate exactly how many milligrams per milliliter or per dose you are in the product. And we don't know, is the percentage of the carrier oil, is the percentage of everything that is in the bottle, is it the percentage of cannabinoids? We have just no clue. It's so confusing. I can just tell you, in medicine, we only work with milligrams, so we can calculate how many milligram per kilo body weight one takes, and this is the only way to do it. So very often, the exact conversion from percent to milligram is not possible. Most of the time, intentional. And in fact, I walked into a store in Las Vegas where they sell marijuana and everything. And I talked to the owner and I said, you know, most of your product, you cannot even tell how much you take. And he said, that's not possible. All my products are really good. I said, well, bring me, about 10 products. And he brought only one who were able to calculate how much milligram is per milliliter. All the others were not possible. So I'm just telling you, it's a mess out there. So this is Young Living example. Here we have the full dose, 1,000 milligram, and we also have half dose bottles at 500 milligram. But let's take this 1,000 milligram bottle as an example. So you have 1,000 milligram or 1 gram in a full bottle. We have 30 milliliter in a full bottle. A dose is 1 pipette, which is 1 milliliter, which means we have 30 milliliter in the bottle. 1 pipette is 1 milliliter. So if you take every day 1 pipette, it will last you for a month, 30 days, and that's the intention. And now all we need to do is to take the 1,000 milligram, divide it by 30 days, and we get 33 milligrams. So on the full dose, 1,000 milligram bottle, you're getting 33 milligrams a day. And on the 500 milligram bottle, half the bottle, you're getting 16 milligram per day. So that's how it should be. So easy, very exact, no questions. So the next question is, what are normal CBD doses for humans? Well, if you want to do homeostasis, it's set kind of that the dose range is about 10 to 40 milligram per day. And you see with 33 milligram on the 1,000 milligram bottle for adults, we're right on that spot, right, for homeostasis. Now, if you have certain conditions and you want to support your body, you're probably going to need something like 40 to 100 milligram per day. So it's a little bit more. When we look at medical use in children, where CBD has been used, for example, to treat seizures, epilepsy, this is CBD as an approved medical drug. We use 300 to 1,000 milligram per day. So we're talking a whole bottle per day, a whole Young Living bottle per day, right? And when we talk adults, it goes up to 6,000 milligram per day. So 6 full bottles a day, you can imagine, right? So this is medical use of CBD. Can you use it for children? Yes, I just told you all the original studies were done with children, for children with very rare epilepsy, seizure disease. And they treat it with up to 50 milligrams per kilo per day. So for a child with a body weight of 10 kilo, that would be 500 milligram a day, our small bottle. An average weight for a 6-year-old is 20 kilo, which means they would get a full 1,000 milligram bottle per day, right? And so if kids can tolerate 1,000 milligram a day, they can certainly tolerate like a pipette of the half dose 60 milligram a day, right? So there's no problem whatsoever. Can you use it for animals? Well, you have to ask my animals here because they read my book and they read how they need to take it. So anyway, I hope the pet CBD is coming back. I have a chapter in my book here, The Power of CBD and Essential Oils, that talks about animals. And all these studies that I mentioned are also in this book with references, so you can find them yourself if you want to. So the next big question is, what is a full spectrum? What is a broad spectrum? And what is a CBD isolate? Well, let's have a look at that. So this is another cartoon from the book. I'm alone at home and I want to move my piano to the first floor. So it's very heavy. It takes me a long time. I mean, just, I'm breaking out in sweat here. Well, much better idea to call all my friends, and they come, they lift it. I can even sit on the piano. It takes like 30 seconds and the piano is upstairs, right? So this is what we call the entourage effect. Entourage is a French word for meaning those that surround you. Like the president has an entourage, he has Secret Service, he has the press corps, he has all kind of people. A film star has an agent, some fans, a photographer, and so on. And so these are the entourages. Now, when you take the cannabis plant, it has the cannabinoids, it has all the terpenes, like all the plants with the smells, the different smell, and some other things. And when they all work together, it's much easier to carry up the piano. So this is called the entourage effect of the plant. So most people, rightly so, prefer a full spectrum product, a full spectrum oil that even has some marijuana in it because it helps to work depending on what you want it to do. So why would one work with an isolate, a single guy, right? Because the single guy has no entourage. And so here, when you have the full plant, then you start extracting and you don't do anything, you get a full spectrum, has everything in it, including marijuana. So if you work in a job like police, pilots, truck driver, medical profession, and you need to do regular drug testing, you're going to lose your job because your full spectrum is going to have some marijuana in it, which is going to show up in your drug test. Now, when you start removing things like chlorophyll, which looks bad and tastes bad, and maybe the THC, the marijuana, then you get a product that we call broad spectrum because it's not full anymore. We already removed some of the stuff. Now, be careful. Many people say broad spectrum means when marijuana has been removed. But in the early days, when we started using the term, it just meant that we removed certain things like bad smelling terpenes and chlorophyll. And you could have in those days broad spectrum with marijuana. And so I have no clue what you're buying if you don't buy Young Living. And so there's still a risk that you get marijuana even with a broad spectrum, even though the newer definition means that the marijuana has been removed. So when you remove everything and the only thing left will be your isolate, that's your CBD. It's pure CBD. It's the pureness is like 99.9% pure, right? And this is what we use at Young Living. This is what I consulted Young Living in the early days to use. Why? Because we wanted it to not put people in jail or having them lose their job. But now we lost the entourage effect. And so we call our CBD Smart Spectrum CBD. Why? Because we recombine it with essential oil, and the essential oil have a full entourage. And so we can basically recreate the entourage, but much better. We can recreate the entourage very targeted. And so what is so special about your Young Living CBD, the only smart CBD in the world? Well, we mix CBD with other plant extracts as essential oils, and that's the concept behind this smart spectrum. You can also mix CBD with specific food or specific beverages, although it's not legal in the United States. I do this all the time, so please don't report me. But anyway, the whole idea of creating a mixture of a happy plant with essential oils that have all their own entourage creates a not just very happy product, but a very smart product. Because now, let's imagine you take CBD. CBD is a plant that is very calming because it releases more anandamide in your body, you've now learned. And I combine that with lavender, with peace and calming, with stress away, all these oils you have, with bergamot, with ylang ylang. Now I'm creating a smart mixture that is all relaxing and happy. Or I take it and put it together with maybe peppermint, which we know is pretty good for your gut and your brain and your breathing. Well, CBD is also good for the gut. It's also good for the brain. It's also good for your breathing because it has receptors everywhere in our organ system. And now you have a smart spectrum with peppermint, for example, and so on. And you can create one after the other, like with cinnamon, it's pretty smart for fats and cholesterol and triglycerides. And so, and then you have, and blood sugars, and then you have one maybe with citrus, which is pretty cool for detox or your brain, and it smells good and tastes good. So you see, you can create all kind of different products, and we call this basically smart CBD. So where does your Young Living CBD come from? Well, most of it comes from Colorado. In fact, the Young Living hemp field was the first in the United States designed as an organically treated hemp field by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So we're pretty famous on our fields. I mean, we don't own the fields. We lease basically the fields. They grow exclusively for us. It's high in the mountains, clean water, clean air, no fertilizer, no pesticides, all that crap, no heavy metals, no big airports close by, no freeways close by, and this is where we grow the stuff. But we also grow some of the CBD in Utah, most of it down in Mona, of course, in the greenhouse, in the headquarters, but also in Tabiona. And Young Living is still testing at different altitudes, with different soils, with different water, to see how we can improve the yield of the CBD. And lately, they also started bringing in some CBD from Oregon, again, up in the mountains, very clean, all very, very nice. And then all of that CBD is tested, is made to an isolate and tested with our laboratory. So we don't have all that crap in there that other people do. And here you see pictures from Colorado. So there's another thing that you need to realize. You see these guys, they're cutting by hand, right? So it's a back-breaking work. So you have to go down with a machete or a big knife and you hack those plants. And again, I have movie clips of all that because I sent teams up to film when they were harvesting, and I have drone movies from above. And so when you do this way, it's like with good tobacco, right? When you handle it with care, your quality will be much better and your yield will be much better. So the next question is, a lot of people still think it's dangerous. Well, when you compare in medical studies CBD with most pharmaceutical drugs, CBD has an absolutely significantly better safety profile. When you take CBD, the side effects could be maybe a little bit tired, a little relaxed. So most people want that as an effect, but it's called a side effect, right? Maybe your digestion is a little bit better. And maybe you regulate your appetite a little bit better. So these are kind of the things that people typically seek and do not avoid. Whereas most pharmaceutical drugs, you're going to find 4 or 5 pages of side effects. And that has to do because it's a megadose of a single thing that our body was never built to receive. I mean, our body doesn't speak synthetic. Our body speaks natural. So, but one thing you need to know, there are some drug interaction, in fact. So, and of course, the physicians and the pharmaceutical industry will tell you, and the pharmacist, yeah, your CBD interacts with our drugs. Well, I, as an integrative physician, alternative medicine physician, I see it the other way. I think the drugs are interacting with my natural CBD, right? But don't be too afraid on this one, because we know for some studies that it takes quite a large amount of CBD to start interacting with the drugs. A little bit CBD, the way we do for homeostatic dosage, it starts around the 100, 200 milligram level where you start seeing some interaction normally. But, just be careful. Unfortunately, many in the US have 4 or 5 different medications, and about 85% of the medications use the same enzymes in the liver as CBD uses to break down. So that's where the interaction comes from. So to summarize everything, I think this is a just absolutely perfect product, right? It's homeostasis, one drop at a time. And even much better by combining a CBD isolate with any kind of essential oils that we have, with the #1 company in the world for essential oils, the best quality, but also the most sales. I mean, we're the ones that started that. Gary started this industry. I mean, it's a new industry that he started. And when you combine that with CBD, you can create these smart CBD products, right? Depending on what you use. For example, I just pick here, like you have peace and calming. Yeah, you combine that with CBD, you're going to get a very nice calming and peaceful CBD. I mean, imagine all the anandamide plus what's in the oil here in the peace and calming, right? And so you can really go to each oil, thieves and CBD, right? It will go maybe to your gut and do some nice things, because cinnamon will help you with healthy blood sugar, healthy triglyceride, healthy cholesterol. The lemon is really good for detox your brain. The rosemary is great for your brain. The eucalyptus is great for your breathing. I mean, just you can do everything. You can digest, great for your gut, right? Imagine you combine that with CBD. We haven't done that yet at Young Living. I have done it, of course, but not Young Living yet. So this is the concept between smart CBD, right? We're the only company in the world who does that. There's one other company in Europe who tried to do a peppermint and a lemon CBD product. They use synthetic, and it was just to flavor it, so the full spectrum doesn't taste that bad, and they were not selling it, and the company went bankrupt. So we're the only one really doing the combination of high quality essential oil with high quality CBD. Now, don't forget, the hemp plant is very unique. It's the only plant that will feed you. And again, you need to see a 30-minute video on me in the kitchen explaining you all the benefits of hemp seeds. It's one of the most nutritional plant products you can consume. It has the best omega-6 to omega-3 ratio in the world. It's better than fish. It's better than anything. This is absolutely a fantastic product, right? Hemp seeds. It does not contain any CBD, however. Okay, hemp plant can clothe you because we can make textiles out of hemp. It can house you because we can create building materials out of hemp. Did you know that most cars today are about 10-15% made from hemp, because hemp fiberglass is so strong? And it can heal you, because we already know that, and I can say that compliantly because the FDA has approved CBD isolate for treatment of seizure disease in children. And I bet you're going to see many more approvals by the FDA to use CBD on many more things. So you're going to be able to read in my book what it all can do. Now, we are doing multi-level marketing, network marketing, and it's a huge growth opportunity, not just in the US, but also right now in Europe. And just for you to know, the biggest market in CBD, when you want to do CBD as a business, it's the beauty market. It's growing at the speed of 280%. So our CBD Beauty Boost is a perfect lavender roll-on. Oh my God, that's a beauty product too, that you can roll all over your face. I mean, just look what's in it, right? And then you see more beverages now and food, but the second largest is personal care, which I don't mean beauty, but personal care and massage therapies, muscle treatments, things like that. So if you do massage therapies, for example, why don't you add an additional thing where you say you can have CBD in your massage oil, and it will have additional benefits for the skin and for your muscles and for everything, and you just charge a little bit more for that. Many hotels, spas do that now. So, and completely crazy because it's so important, I created this CBD Bootcamp, and it's the best education on CBD on the internet. Why can I say that? Because really nobody else has something like that. And so here it is again, cbd.biocodeacademy.com/friends. produced by myself and the Biocode Academy, which is my company where I produce these kind of things. So go there. There's 6 hours. It's 12 videos. I think I listed them all. Let's see if I can show. Yeah, here they are. So I'm going to show you more about CBD basics. I'm going to show you an old movie from 1942 about hemp for victory, where they used hemp products for World War II. We're going to go through all the history back, 10,000 years. There's a whole 30 minutes on CBD and animals, what we know of the animal studies where they have been using CBD. Fantastic results, by the way. I'm going to show you everything you need to know about all the cannabinoids, not just CBD and THC. Half an hour of me in the kitchen talking about hemp seeds. I'm going to show you all these hemp products, from hemp fuel to hemp building materials to hemp textiles to hemp whatever. Then I'm going to show you something pretty scary. Bioengineering of cannabis. Yeah, today there are already companies, they bioengineer that. So whether it's genetically engineering the cannabis plant or whether it's taking the enzymes from the plant, putting it into E. coli bacteria, and then have those bacteria produce CBD 24/7 in a big biofermenter. And that will bring down the price, of course, from about $100 a gram or something like that to a few cents a gram. So, but it's not going to be real. It's going to be made by bacteria. I have a pharmacist, Lindsay Elmore, the pharmacist, will talk about the interaction of CBD medication. I did some movies on harvesting, planting and harvesting. Up to 10 processing steps can be taken to extract CBD, and I show them you all. And then there's a movie called The CBD Secrets, and we have the director's cut. So anyway, 6 hours worth of CBD. It's the best that you can take. Now, another little announcement I would like to do. In September, I did a symposium, an essential oil symposium. Again, I've been doing those for the last 5 years. And we had 27 speakers and 42 videos. And so the DVDs, if you ordered one and you haven't received it yet, we finally received all the CVDs. So here's a picture. And we have shipped everything within the US has shipped last week. And everything internationally is shipping right now. So you should receive your DVD. But why do I tell you that? Because if you missed it, or if you missed some of the videos, we were playing them for 6 days, about 6 videos a day. And one of the videos was from Amanda and Brian Cooper, showing how they were renovating the house for the foundation. If you missed some of this, or you want to see some of the movies for one day on November 20, we're going to do an Encore Day, which means we're going to give all the videos with exception of 5 bonus videos you can watch that day. But I mean, hey, this is like 30 hours worth of watching. So you're going to have to be selective which one you want to watch. But you can still order the DVDs or the downloads or just the access online. I mean, all of that is still possible. So if you're interested, I wrote 2 books, 2 best-selling books, the one about CBD and essential oils. The first part is a little bit about the law, about how you grow the plant. I mean, what we talked today. The second part is more the medical part. We didn't talk too much about that today. And the third part is how to mix it with essential oils. And I put in all my experience, what oils to use, what carrier oils, what mix well, how to do it, and why to do it. Then I created a book that really goes through what we call now subscribe to save, or we used to call the essential rewards order. And in this book, I tell you basically for 12 months how to clean up your life with all the research behind it, what these chemicals do to our life and why we need to replace them. Now, because the program changed, it's not essential rewards anymore. Now it's subscribe to save or loyalty rewards. I just created an insert that will go into print next week. And we're going to put a little sticker on the book that says updated information. And you're going to have the new information about the new program and the new goodies that you can get when you subscribe to save. Anyway, you can order this book at droli.com. Right now, they go pass you on to amazon.com. But in a couple of weeks, we go back to LSP, Life Science Publishing. They're going to have a new marketplace for all the books they have, and you're going to find these books probably at a pretty good price for Black Friday with the new insert already in there updated. So with that, I hope you learned a lot today. It's exactly, I'm 4 minutes early. Here we have the products. In addition to what you see here, we have the Beauty Boost, and now new the Seuss roll-on that was supposed to come out at convention. I was supposed to talk about it, but it just came out now with the holiday catalog. So if you haven't seen it yet, look at the Seuss roll-on, but also look at the Beauty Boost, which is an outstanding product.